I'd never spent much time thinking about bad cops until I saw some abusing a stranger and called 911 to report the incident.
911 emergency.
I want to report improper conduct by a police officer.
Next thing you know, I'm getting beaten, arrested, and thrown in jail.
We live in Sin City. Any sick, twisted desire you want, you can have come true in this city.
There's two black men riding a nice Lexus. Of course, something had to be wrong with that.
Come on.
You even hear jackass say it. Do what you gotta do, because we gotta find something.
Do what you gotta do, because we gotta find something.
My client had been booked as Bill with the N-word as his middle name.
They assassinate the character of the victim.
There was an exterior video, all of a sudden, that's missing.
That had to disappear, and it did.
They cover up a lot of stuff because they don't want to scare away potential customers. They want everybody to come here and feel safe.
Who do they answer to? The billionaires that run the strip.
If you have a sheriff that can kind of spin things the way that they need to be spun, then you can keep the registers ringing.
The big money says do whatever you have to, but keep the money flowing.
I saw that damn car on TV, and I think that's my husband. You took from me, the only person ever cared over the life.
I believe he came to kill somebody and get time off with pay, and it worked.
In my early career, it was like you get 6 weeks off, you shoot somebody. And it's good if you do it by Christmas. You get 6 weeks off at Christmas.
The finest police department in America.
Hi, I'm Ramsey Dennison, director of What Happened in Vegas.
My name is Randy Wiles, and I am the executive producer.
What Happened in Vegas is about the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I work in television mostly as an editor on true crime shows, and cops are always the heroes of these shows, the stars, and I've spent most of my career making law enforcement look good, and it had never really occurred to me that dirty cops are a problem until I saw some like 10 feet in front of my face in Las Vegas. I was shocked at how the police officers flat out lied about the situation, manipulated the events on the police report, and made the video in the parking lot disappear. The further I probed into the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, the more I discovered this wildly corrupt culture. Their police force is one of the deadliest in the nation. And the problem isn't that most police officers in Vegas are bad. The problem is that the ones who are get away with it almost 100% of the time.
And our documentary is about police brutality, police corruption, and racial profiling in the Las Vegas Police Department.
Police shootings have been dominating the headlines in places like Chicago and New York. You don't hear about them in Las Vegas. It's not an accident that those shootings stay out of headlines. As with most things in Vegas, it's about money. And our movie takes a look at that, about how money rules Vegas.
With over 40 million tourists annually in Las Vegas, and the widespread police corruption and brutality in Vegas, we thought it was a great opportunity to share important stories.
The movie is about what happens when a police department has zero accountability to the citizens that pay their salary. And the movie's also about how crimes are kept out of the headlines to protect Vegas's image as a safe tourist destination.
We thought that it was a very important message and story to be told here.
What the hell? What the? I don't know. What the? Oh, good job, dude. stand there. Don't even get back. Holy shit. What was that? That car over there.
Wow.
Dude, I'm like shaking. I was scared. Look at that, look at, there's gunshot.
He's not dead.
Yeah, you see the windshield? Like, there's like 4 different... It's freezing. It's freezing. Dude, next time there's gunfire, you should, like, get back. Just saying.
What's all that smoke about?
I don't know, but why don't helicopters just stay in one place? Oh, look at that. They're right there. No, they're
Oh, he's dead.
He's dead?
Yeah, he's not. Who is that? Oh.
He's dead?
He's hella dead. This is my brother. You don't like him. Hey, what's wrong? I charged $10. Oh, that's fine. Put it on the bed.
That's sad. She's in full. He's alive? Oh, puppy!
No, he's not alive. They were pulling the bag. No, they pulled the bag. They had a bag in the back.
Wait, is he... They're dragging his body, or...?
Pull him on the ground, didn't they?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Last week on March 4th, What Happened in Vegas had its world premiere to rave reviews at the Cinequest Film Festival, which is held annually in San Jose, CA. This year there were also additional screenings held in Redwood City. The documentary by Ramsey Dennison is primarily focused on 3 very questionable shootings of Las Vegas residents by members of the LVMPD, aka Metro, and the lack of any resulting consequences for the officers involved in those killings. Within Las Vegas, all 3 cases were very prominent incidents that received widespread local coverage and generated significant criticisms against the LVMPD and their handling of them. The inadequacies of the investigations into the questions surrounding those cases and outright cover UPS, as well as the reasons behind them, also play a major role in the film. Trevin Cole and Brian Yant. The first case featured in the movie is that of Trevin Cole, who was caught on camera selling a very small amount of marijuana to an LVMPD detective. Cole very easily could have been arrested right then or at virtually any other time he stepped out of his house, and there was no indication that Cole was or would become violent. Instead, in order to create a dramatic confrontation intended to be used in a proposed reality show the LVMPD was hoping to create, they decided to conduct a full SWAT raid on his apartment. During that raid, Sergeant Brian Yant, who had intentionally used falsified information from another person, that actually lived in Texas, with the same name as Cole to attain the search warrant, shot Cole in the head with an AR-15 in front of his pregnant girlfriend, while Trevin was on his knees in the bathroom. Later, in an attempt to justify their actions, Metro police officers showed up at the house belonging to Cole's in-laws, where his girlfriend, who was literally within days of having their baby, was staying. They then conducted an illegal search of Cole's belongings, hoping to find something that would incriminate him and provide justifications for the murder. Not only was nobody held accountable in any way whatsoever for the falsified search warrant, the illegal search afterwards, or the murder itself, Brian Yant, for whom this was his 3rd deadly shooting, was recently hired by the Las Vegas Police Protective Association as the union representative that advises police officers when they are involved in shootings. Eric Scott and Costco's, conveniently, malfunctioning camera. The second and most well-known case featured in the movie is that of Eric Scott, who was shot by LVMPD officers William Mosher, Joshua Stark, and Thomas Mendiola as he walked out of a Costco located in a suburb of Las Vegas known as Summerlin. The original reason that the police were called was because an employee at the Costco had noticed that Scott was wearing a holster under his shirt. Eric Scott was legally registered to carry the concealed weapon that he was armed with that day. However, Costco has a policy against firearms within their stores. After having a discussion about that with Scott, a Costco security guard, Shy Lyerly, called Metro and reportedly exaggerated his behavior. Eric had asserted his legal right to be armed, but had not acted in a threatening manner. After an evacuation order was given at the store, Lyerly pointed Scott out to Mosher, Stark, and Mendiola. Those officers then proceeded to give contradictory, confusing, and aggressive orders to Scott. Shortly after, Mosher shot Scott, and after he had already fallen to the ground, Stark and Mendiola followed suit, firing numerous rounds into his body as he lay already mortally wounded. Like most large retail stores, that Costco location had security cameras throughout the inside and outside of the store. One of those was situated where it should have recorded the entire confrontation. By some amazing coincidence, that one surveillance camera just happened to be malfunctioning that day, and all the footage from that specific time was unrecoverable. In the movie, Eric Scott's father, Bill, also describes how the police soon realized that a report by the EMT in the ambulance that transported Eric to the hospital where he was pronounced dead had noted that there was a gun on his body still within the holster. The problem with that was that the police had at some point retrieved that gun and placed it at the scene of the shooting to corroborate their story that Scott had pulled his gun as a justification for it. The next day, even after they were denied permission to do so by Eric's brother, who lived with him at the time, Metro officers conducted an illegal search on his apartment under the pretense of securing his property. Not long after, the narrative became that Scott had actually been carrying 2 guns at the time of the shooting. As was the case with those involved in the Trevin Cole murder, Eric Scott's killing was ruled justified. In fact, Mosher and Stark were given awards for bravery during the murder of Scott shortly afterwards. Mendiola had been fired by that point for giving a gun to a felon. Both of them are still employed with the LVMPD. Stanley Gibson and Jesus Arevalo. The third case featured in the movie is that of Stanley Gibson, a Gulf War veteran who had cancer and PTSD, both of which were caused by his military service. Partially as a result of his medication being cut off by the Veterans Administration and partly because of the effects of the cancer on his memory, Gibson entered the wrong apartment complex after having just moved. Police were called after someone saw him attempting to open the door to the apartment he thought was his, and soon after they had blocked his car inside the parking lot. In spite of the fact that Gibson's car was completely blocked in by 2 unoccupied police cars, see embedded video below, and would not have been able to move, the police at the scene decided they could not simply wait him out. Instead, they concocted a plan to break out Gibson's back window with a beanbag round and then shoot pepper spray into the car, which is against Metro's policy, to force Gibson, who at the time was unresponsive, to come out of it. However, once the beanbag round was fired, Officer Jesus Arevalo fired 7 times with his personal AR-15, later claiming that he thought the firing of the beanbag round was Gibson shooting at them. While the investigation was still ongoing, Arevalo's soon-to-be ex-wife was recorded stating that, among other things, he had said before Gibson's killing that he wanted to shoot someone so he could get paid time off, had referred to Gibson using a racial slur and expressing disdain for him, and had bragged about how fast he was able to fire off those 7 rounds. Not surprisingly though, Stanley Gibson's shooting, like every other police shooting in the entire history of the city of Las Vegas, was ruled justified. Not only that, but Arevalo was placed on disability as a result of stress from the shooting and given a monthly payment of $23,000 to $28,000, plus cost of living increases, for the rest of his life. Beaten and arrested for reporting police brutality. Several other non-fatal incidents are also featured in the movie, including an unarmed and innocent man who was shot at a local 7-Eleven after he was mistook for a murder suspect, and a man who used a hidden GoPro camera to film himself being assaulted and falsely arrested by a saturation team after he refused to provide ID as a passenger at a traffic stop, which he legally was not required to do. The video in the latter case also captured audio and video of those officers stating as they searched his car that they had to find something to justify his arrest, after the fact. The other incident featured within the movie is director Ramsey Dennison's own arrest by Las Vegas police officers Mark Bellinger, Kyle Frett, and Jared Casper. While on vacation in Vegas, Ramsey saw those 3 officers both verbally and physically abusing a man they had already taken into custody and successfully handcuffed. Not having seen that type of behavior from cops before and having a positive opinion of the police from working on true crime shows as a film editor in Los Angeles, Dennison made the rookie mistake of calling 911 and reporting the officers. The 911 operator responded by calling Bellinger, Frett, and Casper to let them know someone had called to report misconduct by them. They then promptly came over and beat, then arrested, Dennison. Later, both the supervisor who had responded to Dennison's 911 complaint and the internal affairs investigators rubber-stamped their approval of his treatment by the trio of Metro officers. Also, not terribly surprisingly, he was later told that none of the cameras at the club where his assault took place were turned on that night, effectively precluding him from being able to file a lawsuit to attain some sort of justice. That, along with his experience in the jail and during court, prompted Dennison to begin looking into the history of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and eventually to make What Happened in Vegas, shining a light on the darkness within the LVMPD. Ramsey contacted me a couple months after his arrest, which was also not long after I and several other members of Nevada Cop Block were arrested for the ridiculous charge of graffiti, and even more ridiculous conspiracy charges, for writing with chalk on public sidewalks during protests over the murder of Stanley Gibson, whom I was friends with in high school, and Metro's many other victims, including Eric Scott and Trevin Cole. After meeting with him and getting the feeling that he was genuine in his intentions, I agreed on doing an interview, much of which was included in the movie. Also, while I was limited on what I could discuss about our arrests for chalking, due to lawsuits we had filed, which are still active to this day, as a result, that is discussed in general terms within the film. In addition, several scenes shot of me chalking were included in the movie. Due to the connections I had built working with Nevada Cop Block and during those demonstrations, I was able to point Denison towards several people within Las Vegas that I felt would potentially be helpful, including some who knew or were related to Eric Scott, Trevin Cole, and Stanley Gibson. I'm happy to say that Ramsey did a great job of seeking those people out, building trust with them, and presenting them in a convincing, professional, and impactful way within the movie. He also did a great job of researching the background of those featured in the movie and portraying them as real people, as well as separating their true characters from the smear campaigns that the LVMPD uses to deflect blame from the department after they kill someone. What Happened in Vegas does a very equitable job of showing who Scott, Cole, and Gibson were and the impact their murders had on those they left behind. I was fortunate to be able to attend the movie's premiere screenings at the Cinequest Film Festival last week, and it turned out as good as I could have ever expected, if not better. Audiences, as well as critics, attending those screenings were very responsive and positive about the movie. I very much appreciate the work that Ramsey and his crew did both in making a great movie and shining a light on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department that I expect will not go unnoticed and that was much overdue.